Darkcast Network. Out of the shadows come the best indie podcasts.
Hi guys, I'm Courtney.
And I'm Lisa.
And we are the hosts of The Book of the Dead, a true crime podcast based out of New Jersey, where we tell you about the most obscure cases that you may have never heard of. So join us in the Book of the Dead library for another chapter of the Book of the Dead wherever you get your podcasts. Bye guys.
On his way, devil is on his way, devil is on his way, motherfucker, the devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees, devil is on his way, fall to your knees, devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees, devil is on his way, motherfucker, he's on his way.
Hey y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Dill. What's the dill pickle?
You know.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You have to explain it to us.
You know when people say, you know, when you ask them something like that, they seem so sure of themselves, you know?
I don't know shit.
Right. Well, here we are, another episode of Mountain Murders, a part 2.
We have part 2 of the Sister Margaret Ann Pahl story.
I've been waiting on this one. I haven't looked anything up. I haven't Googleized it. I've just been waiting for you to tell me what happened.
Okay. Well, Dylan, before we get started, I just have to say, this is a broad statement. I'm not talking about you, Jimmy. You fucking jackass. If you take the time to comment on a podcast.
Right.
Here's my thing, okay? I had an individual, not Jimmy, the piece of shit, comment about one of our cases that it was just incredibly factually wrong because he grew up in the area and he knows the real story.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well, tell that to the author of the multiple books I read and all the newspaper articles. This dude's continuing to post about what a piece of shit person I am because I just don't know anything about this story. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if you feel that strongly about a case, maybe you should start your own podcast and tell us the real truth, right? Like, I just don't understand this hyperfixation people get in this virtual reality. I'm like, you don't know me. I don't know you. Like, somehow you happen to find the podcast, but that doesn't mean you have to harass us. Like, move on with your life, dude.
Okay, A, I'm going to assume they found the podcast by accident.
Probably.
B, everyone online's an expert nowadays, right? Because I didn't know that people, there's so many economists and stuff on the online, and they're very studied.
Everyone knows everything all the time.
Yes, and
have you not been informed?
what part of deeply research do they not understand? Because they the people that come at you like that, it's happened more than once over the years.
It's so exhausting, and normally I'm just like, whatever, but today I'm incredibly tired. I've had so much homework, and I have a huge project due, and I've been working my ass off and trying to finish up this case and just trying to, like, juggle all these tasks, right?
Yeah.
And on top of it, like, my house, I feel like, is never clean because I don't have time to clean it, and I'm just, like, I'm stressed and overwhelmed a little bit. It's kind of near the end of the semester here. And then I just see, like, 7 to 10 comments from this psycho.
You're dumb.
Like, just quit. Like, go the fuck away. What is wrong with you?
Well, these people always act like you just make the story up. Like you just saw a headline, pulled a few names, victims and such, and just wrote a fictional account of the situation.
And I always try to remember to include my resources, like at the end of the episode. So I'm like, dude, you can listen to the end of the episode and hear like the book I read. And here's the thing. It's an old case. And the book I had used as a resource, I'm very familiar with. I know exactly the case. I mean, I'm like very familiar with this case. And I checked the book out from my local library, and it was published like 40 or 50 years ago. So there is a possibility that there are more books or, more research has been conducted since. So maybe some elements of the story are different now. Maybe we know more. But this is a story based on a book that was written 40 or 50 years ago. I am talking about it like, hey, this is the book I read. This is the research I used. But it does not matter because Jimmy's going to argue with me until he dies because he knows everything there is to know about this true crime case. So, Jimmy, start your own fucking podcast.
These dumb.
People are fucking insane. They have these really strange relationships, like these parasocial relationships with content creators. And I just think, get a hobby. Like the way people fixate on something and just beat it to death, like, shut up. Nobody cares, you fucker.
They're just lame. And so
I'm here to make fun of you today.
Tell our listeners what case that you lied about so much.
It was the Tom Dula case in
It was
North Carolina.
one of our very first episodes, right?
No, well, not really, but it just, I grew up in North Carolina too, Jimmy, and I've heard the story my whole life too, Jimmy. But Jimmy knows all. So you know what, Jimmy? Why don't you munch on this box, bitch? Okay, I'm channeling Judy Gemstone. Munch on this box.
Damn, Jimmy, enough of Jimmy.
Start your own podcast.
He's not gonna.
Leave me alone.
I wish he would, and I could find it just so I could be like, you're dumb.
I just want to meet Jimmy in person so I can tell him to shut the fuck up.
I'm sure you're not the only person.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm probably not the only woman in his life that's ever told him to shut the fuck up because he seems like a real fucking winner. Anywho, I just want to call him out. Shut up, Jimmy. Nobody cares.
Well, but see, that's another thing. These people with these super strong opinions are not listeners. They're not long-term listeners. They'll listen for 5 minutes to one episode, and just they know everything and want to attack your character and how you look.
Comical.
The internet brings out the worst in humans.
It's true. That's why I've lately have just been avoiding the internet altogether. Like, I don't even really get on social media anymore because I'm just so exhausted with it all.
The YouTube comment section. That's where you go to find the dredges
yeah,
of
I'm
society.
like, and here you are, you dumbass, listening to it on YouTube. Like, you probably don't even know it's a podcast that you can hear on other platforms because you're Jimmy and you're still stuck on YouTube.
Well, to be clear, we do like when people listen on YouTube.
We do?
Yeah.
We do. Just not Jimmy.
Just not Jimmy.
Jimmy, go fuck off. All right. I'm done with my rant. Are we ready to move along?
Yes, we are ready to move along.
And you can still fuck off, Jimmy. So, we last left you with Monsignor Jerome Schmidt having swept Father Robinson away from the police station, thus ending the interrogation.
And the case, essentially, it goes dormant, right?
Well, that's what we're here to talk about in part 2, Dylan. Are you ready?
I am.
Schmidt was a Toledo native who struggled with a speech impediment, which limited his ability to become a priest kind of early on, though he wanted to, join the church, become a priest. It seems like many in the Catholic community kind of discouraged him from this because he would never be able to deliver what they felt like were proper sermons. But he presses on and kind of becomes known as an expert fundraiser for the diocese. He really knew how to work a room and rubbed elbows with the right people, thus working his way up to become a Monsignor.
I think I would listen to a priest with a speech impediment.
You would?
Give mass or whatever they do.
I'm glad that you're not an ableist then.
No, I think it would actually make it more fun.
Once Schmidt and Chief Vetter whisked Father Robinson out of the interview room, there was no indication where they took him. No report ever surfaced showing whether the Monsignor got Father Robinson to talk about the nun's murder. A retired Toledo police officer said, quote, "You took care of the Catholic Church. The police had to take care of its priests. It was an absolute." And I bring this up because we're going to talk a little bit about the culture of Toledo, Ohio at this time. Heavily Catholic, and they definitely were not above cover-ups to save face for the church.
Well, no, that seems to be, I think there's plenty of evidence across many years of that very thing.
Now, this favorited behavior for the Catholic Church began in the 1960s with a police chief named Anthony Bosch, who ordered officers to escort ushers to the bank on Sunday where they would make their deposits, and also didn't allow traffic tickets to be written to Catholics who might be coming or going to church or leaving church on Sundays.
Oh.
Like, you just were not allowed to bother anybody who is Catholic. It didn't matter. Didn't matter what they did.
While they're doing Catholic things.
When they're doing Catholic things, yes. Now, it wasn't just an unwritten policy. It was, quote, out in the open, according to the retired police officer. He said it was just public knowledge that if you were a member of the Catholic Church or you were Catholic and had ties to the church, you were definitely not going to get in trouble for a crime you committed. It sounds like if you wanted to dress up like a nun on a Sunday and go into a grocery store and like stuff filet mignon under your habit, your roby thing, no one would arrest you.
Oh.
They would just look the other way.
I bet that was good cookouts.
I'm just saying, it was a whole thing. Now, another officer said there was just no way that a law enforcement officer at the time could have arrested a priest. They would have lost their job.
Well, I could see a lot of this not really being that great of a policy in the long run. You know what I mean?
For example, Dylan, Father Alexander Pinter was believed to be molesting boys at a lakefront cottage in the 1960s. Many people confronted law enforcement about when an arrest would be made. It seemed that everyone in the community and even in the Catholic Church at the time knew the priest was a pervert. But quickly, the church sent the priest to Canada to a treatment center. He later returned to the U.S., where he taught in seminaries and became a parish priest in Louisiana. So instead of arresting this guy, the church is told basically, do your thing, and they send this pervert priest away.
They send him on the pedo circuit, and then he comes back and is given a job working around kids again.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Toledo Diocese was known for covering up priests who sexually abused children dating back to the 1950s. Dozens of altar boys were taken to a separate lakefront cottage over the years in groups of 2 to 4. None of the boys had the confidence to tell their parents until the summer of 1961. A mother then stormed into the rectory to confront the parish pastor about the abuse, and the following day, the accused priest was gone. So this was like a repetitive kind of thing, like just kept happening.
And I think that's what was so horrible about these pedophile priests. There's no other words to describe them. Is because this made it almost worse than molestation and other. I mean, I guess if there can be levels of it, because you don't have anybody to turn to. You got the church wrapped up into it, your beliefs, your religion. I mean,
it's very confusing, especially for a child.
Yeah, you may even think your soul is at play, and you're scared to tell anyone.
No one's believing you. People are gaslighting you, telling you it didn't happen, or calling you a liar, telling you what a little creep and sinner you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's so disgusting.
And just the level of like putting these priests up on a pedestal.
Right.
I mean, it's almost like they're being worshipped as if they're some kind of deity who can do no wrong. They're a man of God. They're a man of the cloth. Like, how dare you look at them any other way except for this person that should, almost be revered and worshipped. Makes it even more kind of dysfunctional because you're not allowed to point out what this person's doing.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just very sort of toxic and sort of dysfunctional when you really think about it.
Well, you add that to the general atmosphere of this area of cops not bothering people with Catholic ties, if you will. I mean, as a kid or a victim, who in the world would you turn to? Who do you think you could trust?
Well, this particular case in 1961, instead of admitting the abuse, the bishop in charge ranted from the pulpit about these rumors that were untrue. The priest himself left the church in 1965 and fully admitted to the abuse he perpetrated in a 2002 interview. He admitted there had been a cover-up. And in 2002, church officials said they had no record of allegations against that specific priest, though he had been removed from the church.
Yeah, like we believe what they say.
So even the priest is admitting, like, yep, I touched little boys. But the church is like, nope, we don't know anything about it. Nope, looking the other way. I mean, I don't know. A Toledo police officer named Bill Gray knew it was frowned upon to arrest priests in Toledo, but that didn't stop him from arresting a 53-year-old priest for having sex with a 16-year-old boy in a public restroom. Gray found Robert Thomas receiving oral sex in a mall restroom after reports of a disturbance were called in.
Yeah, there's a disturbance in the bathroom.
Should also mention that the priest was wearing what was described as a pair of skin-tight white jeans and a muscle shirt.
No.
Yeah, in this mall.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Now, as soon as word got out that Gray had arrested this priest, he started receiving harassing phone calls from both, like, his fellow officers and church officials. Like, harassing, threatening.
God is angry with you, my son. I mean, what? A priest will call me up on the phone talking shit?
Yeah, like his priest calling him, telling him, like, don't come to church. You're not a Catholic.
Oh.
You should be excommunicated for what you did.
Which is a major threat in the Catholic religion.
The judge who found the priest guilty was also the subject of harassment. The judge ended up sealing the arrest records and charges. The priest avoided jail time, and eventually his record was expunged. Bill Gray copied the arrest report because he knew that it would vanish, and guess what? It did.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I just bring this up because it's... One has a difficult time, I think, processing, like, how did this guy get away with murder? But when you look at the time period and what was happening in the city, it's easy to see how this was swept under the rug.
So nobody's mad at the priest in the skin tight white jeans and muscle shirt getting head.
I imagine it was like a fishnet muscle shirt.
I know
too.
it is. I know it was. I could see it in my head.
It's like exciting to think about.
Getting head from a minor in the bathroom, a public
at a
bathroom.
Mall.
Right.
At the mall.
Yeah, nobody's giving him hell.
Just outside the JCPenney. Yeah. No one within the Toledo law enforcement community wanted to see a priest arrested for Sister Margaret Ann's murder. Dave Davison, one of the first officers who responded to the scene, he was actually in the cafeteria eating breakfast at the time. Remember, the call came in that the body had been found? He said, quote, "There's no doubt the police department sat on this." Chief Deputy Vetter would deny a cover-up in 2006, saying, quote, "We just wouldn't do that," even though he's the one who actually took Father Robinson along with the Monsignor out of the interview room.
See, what kills me is the church doesn't seem to care at all about this nun who was murdered brutally.
No.
I mean, it's like she doesn't
She's just
matter.
expendable.
Yeah, I mean, what's up with that?
Just goes to show how women are treated. Okay, let's move along. So at every turn, Officer Davidson was stonewalled when he tried to get Sister Margaret's case reopened because her case just goes cold after this. He wrote Catholic leadership, including Pope John Paul II, the governor, the state's attorney's office, and the U.S. attorney's office, and no one would reopen the case. It was like untouchable. Like no one wanted to get involved in this case where the priest was a possible suspect.
So that shows that leads you to believe that the Catholic Church's influence goes right up the line to the highest, political and law enforcement arms.
Well, it seems at certain periods in our history, they have had a lot of sway. Yes. I don't know, maybe not so much today, but at least back in 1980 and in the 1990s, before the lid was kind of blown off of the sex abuse scandals.
Right.
They were untouchable.
Yeah, but even then, it's like they just paid everybody off and still I mean, I don't remember a bunch of priests going to jail, do you?
No.
And that's really disgusting to me. And
not to be, I don't want to offend anyone.
Well, no, we're not.
We may have listeners who are practicing Catholics, and I'm not I don't want to be offensive.
Well, I'm not slamming Catholics.
I'm not slamming your religion at all, but I do think that these issues can't be ignored. But I feel that way about every denomination. I mean, there are priests or, ministers in a Christian church accused of this type of thing.
Right.
And I mean, I'm not okay with that.
No, and like we've said before, we think it's even worse because they hide under God, under the guise of being a loving, caring authority figure in these people's lives. and it's a very terrible thing they're doing. And I'm not slamming Catholics, but if I was Catholic, I would
demand more of my leadership.
That's the thing,
right? I mean,
it's the leaders, it's the high, it's the same old song and dance. No matter what you're talking about, it's I can love the people, but not the people in charge, right?
Davison was even loosely threatened by the district attorney, Anthony Pizza. Pizza thought that Davison was writing a book about the nun's murder. Pizza threatened to sue Davidson and ruin his life, quote, if everything he published wasn't 100% proven.
His middle name's Pepperoni.
That's awesome. Makes me kind of want a pizza.
It makes me want pepperoni pizza.
Can we have pizza?
No.
Please?
Maybe.
See how cruel he is? He denies me my one pleasure in life. Gerald John Robinson, let's talk about this guy. He was born in Toledo on April 14th of 1938 and raised in a Polish section called Kuszwantz. Probably not saying that correctly.
I'm sure you're not.
He was immersed in the Polish-American culture and was raised as a staunch Catholic. Those who knew Robinson growing up suggested his mother pushed him into the priesthood. Others would say that was just a rumor, that he really wanted to be a priest. Mrs. Robinson was described as a cold authoritarian and, quote, you didn't want to get on her bad side. She was very proud when her son Gerald decided to become a priest. It was considered the highest calling a person could choose. Gerald attended St. Mary's High School and then Orchard Lake Schools in Michigan to study seminary. Classmates described him as being kind of quiet and serious. He was very careful when running the audio-visual equipment. He was in charge of choosing films to show the other students, I guess kind of as a recreation movie night.
Oh, he took it seriously, huh?
He was very, very careful about walking the line, never questioned authority, and refused to show any films that would be considered in any way controversial.
So he didn't show any good films?
Yeah, I don't know what he was showing, babe.
Well, I mean, so he is a person who's buying in to the system, right?
Yes.
Right.
He doesn't want to rock the boat. He doesn't want confrontation. Well, at the time, the Polish community revered priests. Father Robinson, who spoke Polish, was immediately welcomed into what was described as a closed circle. He was known for having a few close friends, and it was really hard for someone to become his friend. Father Robinson appeared to inhabit his own world. He would entirely tune everything out, occasionally passing by people without even acknowledging them. He could be friendly in one moment, then ignore you the next. Considered quite moody, Robinson was unpredictable, like in his behavior. A neighbor said Father Robinson never spoke, nor did he even say hello in 10 years of living next door.
Ah, he sounds like a fun guy to be around.
Other neighbors said he would blast Black Sabbath in the driveway while washing his car.
Okay.
Church members said Father Robinson was either well-liked or loathed. There was no in-between with him. Like, people had a strong reaction. Either they thought he was just amazing or they absolutely did not like him.
Have you ever known anybody like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm one of those people. People either love me or they can't stand me. I don't know.
Well, I love you.
I'm a little prickly pear.
I love you all the time.
But yes, I have known those people. In 2002, a nun named Sister Mary Curtis met with a case manager for the Toledo Catholic Diocese. We're skipping ahead here 20-something years, right? During this meeting, the nun detailed sexual abuse at the hands of a priest. And this guy had been defrocked back in 1996. The nun had spent $50,000 out of pocket on therapy and medications. Sister Mary wanted to be reimbursed for those expenses. Eventually, she was asked to testify before a church review board. Sister Mary revealed horrific childhood secrets about being sexually, physically, and emotionally abused by a group of men and women when she was a child, and that included several Catholic priests. One of the priests was Father Gerald Robinson.
Damn.
Now, she claims she was pimped out that the main, I guess, priest, that was responsible for most of her sexual abuse, allowed Father Robinson to pay him to abuse this girl.
See, that sounds like that one case they made that series about.
Yes.
Yeah. What was that?
The Keepers.
The Keepers.
Came to mind when I was reading this. Now, she claimed some of the priests were involved in a satanic group that performed rituals in honor of Satan on a regular basis. And see, this, I think, is where a lot of people get lost in the sauce as far as credibility goes. Anytime that a person mentions satanic rituals or satanic cults, most people are going to view that person as maybe not quite right.
Well, they're going to be like, yeah, right.
Exactly.
That's what they're going to think in their head.
Exactly.
And this is what happens every single time. And also there's been a lot of fake stories of this nature.
Satanic panic and all that, I think, really turned people off to the idea that there could be something like that existing in the world.
And that's just one of those things your brain can't even allow you to imagine is real.
Right.
So you're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And you wouldn't want to admit it. Even if there was evidence in front of you, you would probably still try to play it off or try to logically explain this away. But yes.
Sister Mary also stated that Father Robinson was a perpetrator of S&M during these abusive sessions. She suffered from PTSD and dissociative disorder. As soon as this meeting was over, one member of the board, who happened to be a psychologist, told the others, like, we need to report these allegations to law enforcement. Like, I'm bound by law to report this to law enforcement.
Right.
Only one of the 6 people on the review board, this psychologist, who also happened to be the only non-Catholic, is the only one that wanted to report the information to police and found Sister Mary credible. The allegations were dismissed by the review board. They found her to be not credible and that they would need further evidence of this. They just didn't believe her, so it was going to go nowhere. Now, around this time, a cold case investigator with the prosecutor's office named Tom Ross decided to review Sister Margaret Ann's case. He was aware, the district attorney's office became aware of Sister Mary's claims, and the name Father Gerald Robinson popped out as one of her abusers, allegedly, but also as the top suspect in this murder case. So, Investigator Ross, he was a retired police detective, by the way, and then he was just like an investigator for the DA's office. So he learned that Robinson had been the only suspect in Sister Margaret's murder and that detectives didn't have enough evidence to arrest him. That was kind of what he was told about the case, why it went cold. Since Sister Mary had suggested Father Robinson was involved in abuse, which had now made its way to the prosecutor's office, it was decided that they should take another look at the evidence in Sister Margaret's murder. When Sister Margaret Ann was killed, DNA was not a tool for identifying suspects. There had been items in storage for years, including the letter opener, a pair of men's black-soled shoes, a Valium bottle prescribed to Father Robinson, the nun's clothing, the altar cloth, fingernail clippings, hair samples, and bodily swabs. It was determined that the letter opener matched stains on the altar cloth. At least that's what these investigators thought. The holes in the cloth appeared to be made by this letter opener.
Can I say, given the time period this crime happened in, that's some pretty good evidence that they have stored away.
It is. So they send these items to the Ohio State Crime Lab. Unfortunately, they were unable to make a match. They could not, say conclusively that the letter opener was responsible for the cuts.
Okay.
The stabs, however you want to describe it. DNA was then examined. Initial blood and DNA tests did not help build a case. Yet investigators were convinced the letter opener was the murder weapon due to the fact that they were able to match the holes and the blood stains, kind of the pattern on it. I mean, they really felt like this is it. Like, why can you not prove,
They thought it was obvious that
Yes.
the letter opener did indeed make the puncture wound or marks
Yeah, so
through
they
the
were
clothing.
just kind of like, I guess, dumbfounded that the state crime lab was like, oh, we don't know. The deputy coroner of Lucas County agreed. She felt it was compatible with the holes in the cloth as well. Investigators decided they needed to seek nationally known experts for their opinions. A blood pattern expert met with investigators in early 2004. As soon as he looked at the altar cloth, he noticed patterns in the blood. One acorn-shaped stain appeared to match with the knob at the end of the letter opener's handle. Only 5 people in the world were certified in blood stain pattern transfer analysis. So prosecutors reached out to see if any one of those 5 people would be willing to examine the evidence in this case. I mean, they're really kind of going the extra mile. They want to make sure they have all of their I's dotted, T's crossed in this case. T. Paulette Sutton of Memphis was one of the 5 certified experts. She agreed to look at the evidence. Sutton determined the letter opener was consistent with the bloodstains found on the altar cloth and noted 6 specific points that seemed to line up perfectly. Another expert, Father Jeffrey Grubb, an exorcist assistant in Chicago,
Get out of here, demon.
met with detectives. From the start, Father Grubb felt the murder of Sister Margaret Ann had been an occult killing. He was kind of considered like a Catholic, I guess one of the Catholic church's like leading experts in occult, rituals and exorcisms.
I'm an exorcist assistant.
All the dirty deeds, right? The upside down cross on Sister Margaret, he felt, was either mocking St. Peter, whom Catholics revered as the first pope, or was making a symbolic reference to Satan. And maybe the killer wanted to do both, according to this priest, Father Grubb. Sister Margaret had also been violated. The autopsy reported the hymen was intact, but she had abrasions inside the vagina. The instrument used was likely the same cross. With all the symbology surrounding Sister Margaret's murder, detectives had a lot to unpack. Father Robinson, was he involved in satanic worship? And did he commit some kind of ritual sacrifice? I mean, you've got this leading Catholic priest saying, yeah, it sounds like it. Father Grubb said whoever killed the nun had an extensive knowledge of Catholicism and Christian rituals.
Wow. And it's amazing that this case did get swept under the rug back in the day, given the details of it.
Now, I should also mention that by this time, around August of 2004, the Toledo Diocese had paid a total of $1.9 million to 24 plaintiffs who claimed they were sexually abused by priests. Lucas County investigators continue to gather information in hopes of building a case against Father Robinson. Within a few months, nearly everyone who had appeared in the 350-page police report from the 1980 interviews had been tracked down. Some of the people had sadly passed away because it had been 24 years since the murder, but they followed up with every single person that was alive and interviewed at that time. Dr. Barron recounted hearing the Mr. Swift call over the intercom, and he remembered turning down the wrong hallway and seeing a priest walking in the opposite direction. When he had told law enforcement at the time and gave a physical description of the priest, which matched Father Robinson, he felt like he was brushed off.
Ah.
So we've got Dr. Barron as a witness describing this. Then we had Grace Jones, who worked in the medical lab. She recalled seeing a priest with a duffel bag around 7 a.m., and she immediately recognized him as Father Robinson. When she later told her boss that she had seen the priest, once this Mr. Swift call was placed and everyone knows the nun has been murdered, she told her supervisor in the lab that she had seen Father Robinson near the crime scene with a duffel bag. She was given a stern warning to keep her mouth shut because he's a man of God.
Okay.
So she didn't want to lose her job. So at the time, she just didn't say anything.
I could have never kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, me either. Another witness, Leslie Ann Kerr, who worked in the coronary unit at Mercy Hospital, had seen Father Robinson near the chapel door at 6:50 a.m. She didn't think much of it until about an hour and 15 minutes later when she heard screaming. When she was interviewed by law enforcement a few days later, she told herself there was nothing out of the ordinary about seeing a priest near a chapel, so she just didn't mention it. Father Robinson's house on Nebraska Avenue had been staked out for weeks. They were doing pretty heavy surveillance on Father Robinson at this time. But on April 23rd of 2004, detectives received some phone calls that the news media was surrounding Father Robinson's house. Someone had tipped them off that he was a suspect in this cold case. So by the time a search warrant was signed, it was mid-afternoon, and investigators feared that Robinson might have time to destroy any remaining evidence.
So I think he's got evidence all these years later?
Possibly. They don't know. But now that the media is surrounding his house and everything, they're like, well, shit, if there was any evidence, he's probably gotten rid of it.
You know, I think an inquisitive, fast-acting media, well, maybe not fast-acting, journalism is very important to a free society.
Good journalism
Good
is
journalism.
important.
But I have to say, you know, a lot of times I'm like, what makes you think you have the right to treat people the way you do sometimes in the pursuit of a story? You know what I mean? The staking out, you know, outside people's houses, you know, just basically harassing them. The hordes of cameras and stuff, even at their homes. I think that's a little much.
Like the paparazzi type.
Well,
my thing is you're interfering with an investigation.
Well,
like, even if
yeah.
someone gave you a tip that this priest is possibly going to be arrested, when you show up with like a van and reporters and cameras and everyone's piled up in front of the guy's house,
asking for comment.
I mean, you're interfering with an investigation.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Because again, it's tipping him off. He could destroy evidence. He could go on the lam.
He could, have another victim or something. I mean, you just never know what's going on in this person's head. And yes, like you said, you're definitely likely obstructing an investigation.
Well, when they finally get these warrants, they go to Robinson's house and interview him about the 1980 murder. For an hour and a half, Father Robinson was pressed about Sister Margaret Ann's murder. He responded in what was described as a curt but coy fashion with each question. Eventually, Father Robinson was arrested and charged with the nun's murder, and they conducted a search of his home. So they did a search. Now, this was the first time an American priest was arrested for the murder of a nun. So as you can imagine, big news.
Right.
Now, Dylan, there are some interesting things that were discovered among Father Robinson's possessions during this search, and I'll mention these a little bit later when we get to trial. A box was found in the priest's closet, which is very weird, Dylan, was full of photographs and prints of dead people.
Oh.
Some of them look like they had been copied. Some of them were actual, photographs. But they were of people lying in coffins, people posing with their loved ones, like in a casket, the family standing around. There were over 200 photos of dead people.
That's kind of weird.
Investigators reached out to members of the Polish community to see if this was maybe some cultural thing.
Well, I was going to say,
could there be some kind of explanation for this? And they did learn it was not unusual in the Polish community or in Slavic countries to have photos like this, that it was a cultural thing. However, the amount of photos was strange because usually it would be limited to loved ones or close friends that you might have their photos, but you probably wouldn't have 200 random photos of dead people just hanging out in your house.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's just a morbid curiosity seeker.
Well, that alone seems odd, but if that was the only evidence you had, I wouldn't condemn someone on just that, even though it is a bit strange.
The priest did own a few rock cassette tapes by bands like Black Sabbath and AC/DC.
Oh.
And they also found a book, The Occult, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Now, at the station, Robinson described being confronted by Father Jerome Swiatek, who angrily accused him by saying, "You did this. Why did you do it?" Now, Robinson says this happened when he showed up at the sacristy and they'd found Sister Margaret. Yet witnesses said Robinson never showed up to the sacristy after the nun's body was found.
Right. It's like they kept waiting for him, basically. You know what I mean? And he's dilly-dallying, showering, kind of taking his time, right?
Now, after, of course, hearing the arrest of Father Robinson, a media frenzy ensues. And after the accounts of child sexual abuse, the Toledo diocese was very busy, so they didn't kind of right away make any kind of statement, but they did receive dozens of calls asking for comment on Robinson's arrest. Officer Dave Davidson didn't mind telling the media how law enforcement had covered up the murder back in 1980. He explained that he had started this letter writing campaign in the 1990s to get the case reopened, and how he was painted as a kook and discredited, and that no one wanted to touch the case.
It's funny how times change, you know what I mean?
Now, a bond was set for $200,000. Robinson said nothing during the arraignment. Judge Patrick Foley was assigned to the case after the original judge recused herself because her husband had been one of the investigators back in 1980. Despite the fact that Father Robinson had been on the church's radar for over a year due to the alleged sexual misconduct allegations by Sister Mary Curtis, the church had not followed its own policies for dealing with priests who were accused of sexual abuse. The church argued that allegations had not been credible, and therefore Father Robinson's priest status had not been changed, and they hadn't even changed it after he was arraigned for murder, even though their policy stated like he shouldn't have been active.
Well, yeah, he's arrested for murder in the church.
The Toledo diocese instead encouraged people to pray for Father Robinson and to believe that he was innocent until proven guilty and not to rush to judgment.
See, this whole time it's been about, oh gosh, the poor priest from the church. Never.
This poor nun.
They've never.
He was brutally murdered, degraded in death, humiliated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone who sacrificed and dedicated their lives so much to the church. To be brutally murdered like that in the very place where she probably felt safest. I mean, honestly. And then humiliated and all that ritualistic symbols and the symbology. I mean, my God. It's like they never even put a statement out about this poor nun.
There were several attorneys who took up Robinson's case pro bono. One of them was named John Thebes, and he was Catholic. He really believed in Father Robinson and wanted to protect the church. He said, quote, "There's a reason these cases are cold cases. There was not enough evidence to convict the first time around, and there's still not enough evidence." To free the priest on a $200,000 bond, supporters needed to put up $400,000 in property value. Robinson's home on Nebraska Avenue, which he co-owned with his younger brother, was among the properties used, and it was only valued at $32,000 in 2011.
What?
Yeah. So again, like,
damn,
they have to get multiple people. Several friends, including his brother, put up their homes for bond. The Toledo diocese refused to pay for Father Robinson's legal fees, and eventually he was placed on a leave of absence with restrictions from the church. On April 30th, a grand jury was presented evidence. The panel's decision was filed on May 3rd to indict Robinson on the charge of aggravated murder. On the same day, he was released on bond. Despite earlier obstacles with the DNA evidence and the fact that in 1980, the evidence had not really been well preserved, investigators still wanted to pursue it in case there was something useful. And as we know, DNA, it kind of changes kind of every couple of years. Like, the technology evolves. We find out more. We learn more. We find new ways of testing.
Right. But obviously how the samples have been kept, where they've been kept, what kind of temperature, is it dark, that's going to affect your the viability of your evidence, or the possibility. I'm trying to sound smart. The possibility of actually extracting helpful information from that evidence.
Well, Dylan, you're exactly right. So that's why on May 19th of 2004, an order was signed to exhume the nun's body, and a second autopsy would be conducted. Despite 24 years of internment, the coroner noted that Sister Margaret Ann was well preserved and that most of her skin was still in place. The stab wounds were still visible.
She's a saint.
You're ridiculous. The killer had first choked the nun with a soft ligature, such as a cloth. There was also bone involvement discovered, in which the killer had stabbed the bone so hard it had left a mark. And though the coroner had conducted hundreds of autopsies, she decided to consult a pair of forensic anthropologists to examine the bones, just to make sure. It was determined the diamond-shaped letter opener blade kind of slid into the indentions, and it was described as a perfect fit. It was determined the weapon had caused the injuries. Another forensic anthropologist was brought in to confirm the findings. The more tests he conducted, the more he concluded that the letter opener could not be ruled out as the murder weapon. The case against Robinson finally went to trial on April 24th, almost at 11th, April 24th of 2006. Not only did expert witness testimony link the letter opener to Sister Margaret Ann's murder, but 3 eyewitnesses placed Father Robinson at the crime scene. By May 11th, a jury found him guilty on all counts. Now let's talk about, I said we would talk about these things in a minute, Dylan. Prosecutors were barred by law from presenting some evidence against the priest. For example, they were not allowed to discuss, the jury was not allowed to hear, the polygraph. So 2 weeks after the murder, Robinson failed a lie detector exam that was given by police. A retest administered by a polygrapher hired by the Catholic diocese.
A polygrapher.
Whatever, a polygrapher.
I guess it's polygrapher. I don't know.
I don't know what it is either. I'm saying a polygrapher.
A poly administrator.
Jimmy, where are you, Jimmy? I need your expert advice. How do I say? Is it polygrapher or polygrapher? Whatever. This polygraph examiner, Dylan, was hired by the Catholic diocese the next month, and that was inconclusive. The defense said the priest was too exhausted and stressed from the police interrogation for the test to be effective.
Right, because they're polygraph experts.
Polygraphing him. Now, in 2003, Sister Mary Curtis told this panel that she was sexually abused by Robinson when she was 15. She claimed another priest paid her father to let Robinson engage her in sadomasochistic acts involving a whip. The same woman also alleged she was raped repeatedly as a girl during the satanic rituals led by priests. Authorities had not been able to substantiate or disprove her charges, but this was not allowed to be mentioned at trial.
So, the polygraph results back in the day.
Can't talk about that.
Her testimony, period, or just that part of her testimony?
I guess just the S&M allegation that Robinson was involved in her sexual abuse. Not allowed to talk about that. When police searched Robinson's home, if you remember, I told you they found a book, The Occult. Many passages were underlined, including describing a black mass in which an innocent was used as an altar. The book was published by a Catholic group in the 1970s before the murder, but it was unclear whether Robinson had obtained this book before or after the murder. But that was not allowed to be introduced into evidence.
How do you feel about these rulings?
I think the occult book is
relevant
to the case. I can understand maybe the allegations of abuse.
Well, given the occult symbology at the scene, so yeah, I think it's relevant as well.
When police interviewed Robinson about 2 weeks after the murder, the other hospital chaplain, the priest or Father Jerome Swiatek, had accompanied him to the station, and according to the detectives, Swiatek, the son of a police officer, emphatically and repeatedly urged Robinson to, quote, just tell them the truth, if you remember. Some in law enforcement have speculated that Robinson had confessed to Father Swiatek, but that Swiatek would have been bound by the seal of the confessional not to reveal any of those details. But that was not allowed to be mentioned in court either, that this other priest had encouraged him to, quote, tell the truth. Also, when officers searched Robinson's home and they found hundreds of photos of corpses and coffins, some appeared to be very old and European. And although taking pictures of dead relatives is not entirely unusual in some ethnic traditions, the sheer number in the priest's house suggested that not all of the dead were family members, but they were not allowed to bring this up at trial either.
Okay.
So those were all things that were excluded from the trial.
Damn, well, the defense won a lot on that part.
By May 11th, the jury found him guilty on all counts, and in 2008, the state Supreme Court declined to hear his appeal. In 2012, he filed for his conviction to be squashed with no luck. He suffered a heart attack in May of 2014 and died 2 months later. Father Robinson vehemently denied killing the nun and never admitted to it. He was given a sentence of 15 years to life in prison.
Damn. So it turned out to be life for him.
Well, he died. Investigators and the prosecution concluded that Robinson had most likely killed the nun over a personality conflict. She was considered old school and set in her ways. And they theorized that this kind of irked Father Robinson for some reason, and that's why he killed her.
Was he new school?
Yes. He is very bright and neon.
He uses a lot of vivid colors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of my resources today, I used a lot of news paper articles. There's the Claremont Sun, the Toledo Blade, and also a book called Sin, Shame, and Secrets by David Yonke.
Are you listening, Jimmy? That's where you can go.
Take note.
Go find all the deets to this story. She didn't make it up, bud.
Take note.
All right, so you believe he was the murderer?
Yes.
I believe that there was more than just personality conflict driving him on this.
I agree.
Yeah. I think he wondered what it would be like to maybe kill someone.
I believe that he may have been dabbling in some dark shit.
I think it's possible.
I mean, I know, anytime you hear that satanic panic stuff, people kind of turn away from it. But I do think that maybe this guy was pressured into becoming a priest, maybe wasn't totally into it, and then had these dark desires or feelings or things he needed to explore.
Well, a brutal murder like that in the bowels of the church, I mean, that could be appealing to someone who's going down the occult path, right? You know what I mean?
Possibly.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's like you're almost a slap in God's face.
It is a ritualistic type of thing.
Yeah.
And we've got this virginal nun, and you're going to sacrifice her.
She's the altar?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, even if it's kind of far out there, but stranger things have happened.
See, the occult's way more dark and scary than some, kids in the woods with black T-shirts on, drinking beer and painting symbols on a tree.
Listening to AC/DC.
Yeah, it gets way worse. It's way darker than that.
It can be, depending on, I guess, what
path you choose.
Pursuing.
Yeah.
Because, you say the occult, but there's like many aspects to the occult that one could explore. But there are definitely those people who are into rituals and might take it a step too far.
Right.
Murder someone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for letting us know what happened.
But I do think that Father Robinson is guilty.
I do believe he's guilty too. And the only bad thing is he got to spend all those years out, living his life after this nun was brutally murdered.
And I feel like the way Sister Margaret Ann's case was treated, and when you kind of juxtapose that next to the way Sister Mary Curtis was treated when she came forth with her abuse allegations, it seems to me that the church definitely doesn't want to hear from women.
Or they don't want to hear from victims.
They don't. Well, yeah.
Certainly not women.
But definitely not women.
Well,
because they've treated both of these victims terribly.
Well, the women serve like a subservient kind of role in the church. You know what I mean?
because it's all about Father Robinson protecting the church. Nobody cares about this poor elderly nun who has served and, been described as, super dedicated, wonderful person, great at her job, right?
Right.
We'd rather protect this priest. And then we have another nun saying, wait, I was abused, this happened. And it's, oh, well, she's just making shit up. Because let's be honest, why would a nun, what benefit does she have by coming forward? She wasn't trying to get any settlement from the church. She wasn't trying to get millions of dollars. All she was asking was like, hey, can I be reimbursed for all this money I've paid out of pocket for therapy and medications over the years?
Right.
Because I'm a nun and I don't make very much money. So of the tiny income I'm receiving, like $9,000 a year, I've had to spend all of my money for treatment.
Because I took a vow of poverty?
Yes. And because your priest did this to me, multiple priests, and instead they're like, nope, she's crazy.
Yeah, dude, they can find $50,000 in the couch cushions at the Vatican. That money would mean nothing to them.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
There was something else about around the time that this trial came into play, and they had paid out like $1.9 million in these settlements. They had moved something like $170 million from Ohio to Michigan. The Toledo diocese had.
Really?
To try to, protect their money I don't know all the details, but there had been some big transfer of money into the state of Michigan from Ohio.
Yeah, so in case some kind of big settlement came against the church there or something, they would protect. See, that's all it's about.
Yeah.
It's about, I just be like, what's God going to do about this? Because these people are in your name doing these things. Some of these people,
Well, it makes me wonder how they can do this, how they can rationalize this while still putting on this facade of being holy and whatever. And then it also makes me wonder if these people don't really believe in this and they're just selling you on the idea, and deep down they don't believe in it and they're just making money off of it. I don't know, because I have a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Well, this goes,
I don't know.
It's a whole nother kind of podcast. We could talk about the Catholic Church and the power they exert to this day and have over many instances in history. Big deals. The Crusades and shit.
Well, there's that.
Anyway.
All right, Dylan, thanks for sitting down with me today to discuss Sister Margaret Ann Pahl's case.
Thank you. Some people say Rome never went away. It just changed.
Okay.
Yeah. You know the theory?
Tell us, Dylan. Well, the way you present it, I'm like, the theory. Well, the way you present that, there could be multiple theories. So what do you mean?
Well, London's the financial center.
Okay.
Of it. America's the military arm of it.
Okay.
Okay. And the Catholic Church is the center of the hub.
And then China's manufacturing a lot of cheap plastic stuff?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
We need China.
Yeah. So that's it?
Yeah,
that's
it.
The theory?
It never went away. It just morphed into it kind of went underground.
Okay.
And if you think about it, it explains it explains some of these dumb wars and shit like that. You're like, why are they doing this stuff? And if you put it in that lens or look through that, you're like, or why does the Catholic Church get such a, wide berth on all these, big deals, these criminal deals that are happening, and seem to be why are they a sovereign nation? You know what I mean? Why? It goes deep. It really does. But
so
again,
so deep,
deeper than the pages of a book. Let me look.
Okay, Dylan.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave you with
that half-explained theory of yours. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah. If you have any case suggestions, any thoughts, you want to write us, mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. And if you're going to write me and tell me I'm all wrong, then just don't write me. Start your own podcast and send me a link, and I'll listen to your better revised version. How's that?
And we hope everybody has a good rest of your week, and we will see you in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Right in the middle. Bye, Dylan.
Bye.